One or two portable poems. Number 1. Going in and out of art bookshops, I deemed myself a civilized woman, an illusion I owe to my education. To meeting numerous poets and artists, I owe it to the rejection of melodrama as an art form beyond redemption, wasting time with prophets in deserts, too long hours spent in libraries. My civilization owes as much to cosmopolitan notions as to solitary voyages in empty carriages of nocturnal trains wailing through tunnels. The driver yet another solitude articulated by a light in the leading carriage. No pointsman can any longer rescript the meaning of the lines on the palms of my hands. My civilization is born of intrigues conceived in foreign cities, to the encounters of men and women on roads of feverish collisions. The solitude of hours spent reading in offices, long after they're empty and the main door is locked and the solitary watchman sits down with his torch and his newspaper. Number 2. Going in and out of art bookshops, I have behaved in ways that might not sound entirely rational, attending meetings with books that bore the mark of other books I'd encountered before, like the Bible illustrated by Chagall, a book whose final pages are punctuated with red atmospheres, red landscapes, the hands of a red god, landscapes in which the pagan dances catch like anchors. But it doesn't seem like our own finales will take place in red. They will be blue and darker blue and yellow, since fate smiles on us, no less than the star-spangled sky behind Eugène Bohr in the portrait by Vincent van Gogh. Our last moments seem unlikely to take place in red, since we live surrounded by things. They are constantly beginning and ending, and manifest mainly through half measures, things we at some level or other believe to be sacred. Or what I mean by this is deserving of special care, things manifesting themselves, for example, in two lovers who fall asleep, clinging to each other like limpets, in cities where the nights are too long and the winter lasts all year round, or in the head hair of your wife, which you remembered many years later in the work of certain twilight evenings, in the thronged arteries of the office, in people and cars, or the order made by the pomegranate's color, and scent in the solitude of some afternoon, when you are back in your little suburban flat, a sigh join hands with another sigh, trying together images that comprise the register of what may well have been your life, or not even that, because you have to ask what it is I claim to lament here, what exactly I'm claiming to lament in this poem. Number 3. After the theft of the Scream, an expert in Munch criticized the other art historians for wanting to have the painting restored. It hadn't returned intact from the robber's hands. The scholar declared that Munch wouldn't want the painting restored. Excoriations, black blemishes, simply the traces of one more voyage. Munch would have wanted the canvas to stay as it was. He thought Munch wouldn't hear a word of it because he was an artist who loved cheap things, painted his works with cheap materials and kept dogs in his studio. Number 4. I live in a city where the police spend half of their time keeping an eye on the beggars in the street. If we wander the thoroughfares by night, the scene keeps repeating. Men in rags unaccompanied unless by a dog, covering their face with their hands as the police van slowly drives past. They don't say a word, and I remember it was Adrian Rich who wrote that I live in a country where poets are not convicts because they're poets, they're in prison because they're black, or women, or poor. I see versions of this scene every night on my way home from work. How well I know it. I've lived through the same day for the last 7 months. I pay attention. I look round for the police van. The Doomke in my ears won't let me deny that the world is a crystal ball, that the stability of every component depends on the rotation of the globe, maintaining a certain speed. And I think I'm responsible above all for the hours when I walk past people in the street, when I stop being some agent at the service of a corporation, whose guard is a dull and predictable green that would execrate the faux pas of a red ending. I'm quiet and alive and responsible for writing these words. The tip of my pen on the paper, cold air on my face, and the cello sounds in my ears. What secret can be found in being quiet? That we existed in a state of exhaustion on the other side of predictable landscapes, when my face is no longer recognizable, when I notice how, these last few months, my handwriting too is mutating. Munch painted the scream after a panic attack on a Paris bridge. He suffered it when he was accompanied by his friends. The scream, he said, wasn't simply a man's face screaming, but a man trying to contain the scream of everything around him, the way embankments contain a river.